The first story, Ethan Carter. It all started 4 years ago when I was 18, and life felt like a blur of small-town boredom and endless curiosity. I used to live in a small town in Pennsylvania, surrounded by hills and woods. It was my senior year of high school, but everything went crazy when COVID hit. Schools closed, shops shut down, and everyone was supposed to stay home. But honestly, my friends and I went out even more than before because we were bored out of our minds. I've always been into exploring creepy places. There's just something about the silence, the history left behind, and the thrill of the unknown that draws me in. Ghost towns, abandoned buildings, you name it. I'm not the kind of person who scares easily, but what happened one night really messed with my head. At the time, I was talking to this girl, Abby. We had a couple of classes together and just started hanging out. I somehow convinced her to go check out this old train station at 2 a.m. It was deep in the woods, way off the beaten path. The station had been abandoned for decades. Locals always whispered about weird stuff happening there. Some said it was haunted. Others claimed it was a hot spot for strange rituals. I thought it was perfect for an adventure. We parked at the edge of the woods and started walking down the old trail leading to the station. It was pitch black, and the trees blocked out any light from the moon. I had a flashlight, but kept it off most of the time so our eyes could adjust. About 15 minutes into the walk, everything felt wrong. The woods were too quiet, like no animals or insects were around. Even Abby, who usually joked about how ghosts weren't real, started clutching my arm. We finally saw the station up ahead. The place was falling apart, with vines covering most of it and broken windows that looked like jagged teeth. As we got closer, we heard something faint. It sounded like music, but not from any instrument I'd ever heard before. It was coming from inside the station, a slow, eerie melody that made my skin crawl. Abby froze and whispered, "Did you hear that?" We stood there, listening. The sound didn't stop. It just got louder and clearer. It wasn't a radio or anything like that. It almost felt alive, like it was pulling us in. Against my better judgment, I said, "Let's just peek inside, we'll be quick." Abby didn't look thrilled, but she nodded. We crept toward the building, stepping over broken boards and rusty metal scraps. As soon as we stepped into the station, the music stopped. Dead silence. Abby grabbed my hand, and I felt her nails dig into my skin. "We should go," she whispered. Before I could respond, something slammed behind us. We spun around, and the door we came through was shut tight. I'm not kidding when I say it felt like the temperature dropped 20 degrees in an instant. Then, the music started again, louder this time. It echoed through the empty halls, bouncing off the crumbling walls, but there was no source, no speakers, no nothing. Abby started crying, and I'll admit, I was terrified too. We bolted back toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. It felt like something heavy was pressed against it from the outside. Panic set in, and we started shouting for help, even though we knew no one else was out there. That's when we saw it. A shadow moved across the far end of the room. It was tall, unnaturally so, and it didn't walk like a person. More like it floated, its limbs moving in a jerky, unnatural way. "Run!" I yelled, dragging Abby toward a broken window. We climbed out as fast as we could, cutting our hands on the shards. The second we hit the ground, the music stopped again. We didn't look back. We sprinted through the woods, tripping over roots and branches until we reached the car. I didn't even wait for Abby to buckle her seatbelt before I floored it out of there. To this day, we never figured out what happened in that station. Abby refuses to talk about it, and I've made peace with the fact that I'll probably never get answers. All I know is I'm done exploring places like that. Some things are better left alone. The second story, Logan Bennett. I'm 20 now, but this happened just under 2 weeks ago. I work at a hospital in a small city in Alabama as a pharmacy technician. It's a quiet job most nights. I work an early night shift from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m., and I'm usually in charge of restocking medications in the surgery rooms. It's routine work, but the hospital can feel eerie during those late hours. On my 6th night of a 7-day shift, I decided to visit my girlfriend Mia at her cousin's house. She was babysitting while her aunt and uncle were away, and she had been feeling anxious staying there alone. The house was a small 2-story place on the edge of town, with no curtains on the windows and a lot of open space around it. When I got there around 4:30 a.m., Mia looked relieved to see me. She'd been too nervous to sleep, so we stayed up talking until the sun rose. After a big day running errands and barely getting any rest, I headed to work that evening feeling like a zombie. That night at the hospital started out normal. I kept myself busy stocking supplies and listening to music on my earbuds. The surgery wing was mostly empty, except for a few late-night procedures wrapping up. As I worked, I heard the squeak of a door behind me. I turned, expecting to see a nurse or a doctor, but the hallway was empty. The sound had come from one of the surgery rooms I had just restocked. I walked over to check it out. The room was dark, and as I switched on the light, I thought I saw a shadow move near the back corner by the supply cart. My heart skipped, but when I looked closer, nothing was there. It's just my imagination, I told myself, brushing it off. I'd been awake for more than 24 hours by then, so I figured I was just overtired. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. At 2 a.m., it was time to deliver medications to the nurse stations on each floor. Most of the hospital was quiet, but the 5th floor gave me the creeps. It had been undergoing renovations, so half the floor was closed off and completely empty. When I got to the 5th floor, I delivered the meds to the occupied side, then decided to take a quick look at the closed-off section. The hallway was dimly lit, with tools and equipment scattered around. As I walked, I felt an icy draft, even though all the windows were shut. I passed an open door and glanced inside. There, on one of the beds, was an old man. His body convulsed violently, and blood streamed from his eyes and mouth. A monitor beside him beeped frantically. I froze in the doorway, unable to move. The man's head jerked toward me, and he let out a gurgling moan. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The room was empty. No man, no bed, nothing. My chest tightened as I backed away, my eyes darting around the hallway. The air felt heavier, like something was pressing down on me. I practically sprinted to the elevator, hitting the button repeatedly until the doors opened. As the elevator descended, I tried to convince myself it was a hallucination from exhaustion. But when the doors opened on the 1st floor, an old man in a security uniform stepped in. He smiled at me, patted my shoulder, and said, "You should get some rest." I couldn't respond. My throat felt dry, and my legs felt like they were glued to the floor. The man stepped out on the 5th floor, even though I hadn't pressed the button. When the elevator returned to the 1st floor, it was empty. I spent the rest of my shift in the pharmacy, avoiding the surgery wing. When Mia picked me up at 4 a.m., I finally told her what happened. She said I probably imagined it, but I know what I saw. Since then, I've avoided that 5th floor entirely. Some things in that hospital just don't feel right, and I'm not eager to find out why. The third story, Abigail Brooks. I live with my boyfriend Nate in a small house on a quiet street. It's a cozy place, just 3 bedrooms and a little backyard, but it's perfect for us. Our block feels super private, with only a handful of houses and a small wooded area nearby. Last October, Nate went to Vegas for a bachelor party, leaving me alone for the weekend. I've stayed by myself before, so I wasn't too worried. That Friday night, I invited a few friends over for wine and scary movies. We were having a great time until the doorbell rang. It was around 11 p.m. All of us froze and looked at each other. I went to peek through the window by the door, but I couldn't see anyone. There were no shadows, no movement, nothing. Probably just kids messing around, I said, trying to play it cool. My friends agreed, and we went back to our movie. But about an hour later, after everyone had left, the doorbell rang again. This time it was different. It rang twice, fast and loud, like whoever was out there wanted to make sure I heard it. My stomach dropped. I called Nate, but he was at a loud bar and could barely hear me. "Just stay in the bedroom," he said. "Don't answer the door." I hung up and sat on the bed, clutching my phone. Then I heard it, a faint tapping sound on the window. I froze. The blinds were shut, but I could hear someone outside. A man's voice called out, "Hey, I need help." It was low and calm, almost too calm. I stayed completely still, not making a sound. "I know you're in there," he said. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. I grabbed my phone and called the police, whispering as I explained what was happening. They arrived about 10 minutes later. 2 officers knocked on the door and I let them in. They walked around the house with flashlights but didn't find anything. One of them told me it was probably a prank and not to worry. The rest of the night was quiet, and by morning I felt a little better. But when I got home from a Halloween party the next night, something was off. The house was cold, and one of the windows in the living room was wide open. I'm sure I hadn't left it like that. I shut it and locked it, trying to convince myself it wasn't a big deal. But then I noticed the basement door was ajar. I've always hated the basement. It's dark, cramped, and has this weird smell like damp earth. I crept toward the door, every instinct in me screaming to turn around. But I had to check. As I reached the top of the stairs, I heard it again. The tapping. This time, it was coming from below. My hand shook as I flipped on the light, but the bulb just flickered and died. Then, from the darkness, a voice said, "You're finally home." My blood ran cold. I slammed the door shut and bolted outside, running to my neighbor's house. The police came back, the same 2 officers as before. They searched the house from top to bottom, but found no one. "If you don't have cameras or any evidence, there's not much we can do," one of them said. I stayed with my sister for the rest of the weekend. Nate came home on Monday, and we installed cameras immediately. We haven't had any more incidents, but I still get chills thinking about that voice in the basement. Some nights, when it's really quiet, I swear I hear tapping again. Smash that like button if you got scared, and leave a comment telling us which moment gave you chills. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not afraid. Choose one of the 2 videos on the screen to test your nerves. Boo!